Hi, welcome to Ripples of Faith. I'm Jenny. I am reading in Exodus right now. We're on chapter 18. I'm reading from the New King James Version. You're welcome to read along with me, or you can put it on in the background and just kind of listen. You can read it if you're reading on your own. You can read in any version that you like. I'm not hardcore New King James only. I would prefer for you to be able to understand what the Lord is saying. So if another version is better for you, then that's better for you. So here we are in chapter 18, and the heading on this says Jethro's advice. And there's some themes in this chapter that we want to look for. So I have them jotted down. Family reunion and praise. Problems with being overloaded, delegation and the body at work together, humility, because Moses will listen to wise counsel, and systemic justice and leadership. So the Lord really did set out some things here through using Jethro to help Moses manage what was starting to happen and how he was being overwhelmed with some things. And Jethro is Moses's father-in-law. That's who he lived with when he left Egypt before he was called up on the mountain and saw the burning bush. He was living with Jethro and married one of Jethro's daughters. Okay, so here we are, verse 1. And Jethro, the priest of Midian, Moses's father-in-law, heard all that God had done for Moses and for Israel, his people, that the Lord had brought Israel out of Egypt. Then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took Zipporah, Moses' wife, after he had sent her back with her 2 sons, of whom the name of one was Gershom, for he said, I have been a stranger in a foreign land, and the name of the other was Eleazar, for he said, God of my father was my help, and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. And Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife to Moses in the wilderness where he was encamped at the mountain of God. Now he said to Moses, I, your father-in-law Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and her 2 sons with her. So Moses went out to meet his father-in-law, bowed down and kissed him. And they asked each other about their well-being, and they went into the tent. So they're like, how you doing? Oh, it's so good to see you. You know, what we say when we haven't seen somebody in a long time. And I think that's awesome. And Moses told his father-in-law all that the Lord had done to Pharaoh and to the Egyptian for Israel's sake, all the hardship that had come upon them on the way, and how the Lord delivered them. That's really great. So he was giving testament of all the things that the Lord had done. Then Jethro rejoiced for all the good which the Lord had done for Israel, whom he had delivered out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Jethro said, Blessed be the Lord, who has delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians and out of the hand of Pharaoh, who has delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that the Lord is greater than all the gods, for in the very thing in which they have behaved proudly, he was above them. Then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, took a burnt offering and other sacrifices to offer to God. And Aaron came with all the elders of Israel to eat bread with Moses, his father-in-law, before God. So this was like a big party. They celebrated, they thanked the Lord, they shared stories, and they were really happy for each other. And they were also happy in the work that the Lord had done through them and for them. Okay, verse 13. And so it was on the next day that Moses sat to judge the people, and the people stood before Moses from morning until evening. So when Moses' father-in-law saw all that he did for the people, he said, What is this thing that you're doing for all the people? Why do you alone sit and all the people stand before you from morning till evening? So he recognized that Moses was really, burning both ends of the candlestick. He was working really, really hard, and it was probably taking a toll on him, and I think Jethro could see that. And Moses said to his father-in-law, Because the people come to me to inquire of God, and when they have a difficulty, they come to me, and I judge between one and another, and I make known the statute of God and his laws. So Moses' father-in-law said to him, "The thing that you do is not good. Both you and the people who are with you will surely wear yourselves out." That makes sense, right? Only one person doing all the work. And we're talking thousands and thousands of people here. This was a huge crowd. So Jethro's point is not just that Moses can't handle all of this, but it's not good for the people either, because if they have to wait and wait and wait and wait to get their turn to talk to Moses, circumstances can change. Things might need to be handled more quickly than what Moses is able to do on his own. Okay, so for this thing is what is too much for you. You're not able to perform it by yourself. Listen now to my voice, and I will give you counsel, and God will be with you. Stand before God for the people, so that you may bring the difficulties to God, and you shall teach them the statutes and the laws, and show them the ways in which they must walk, and the work they must do. So he's saying, train your people. Moreover, you shall select all the people from all the people, able men, such as fear God, men of truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50s, rulers of 10s, and let them judge the people at all times. Then it will be that every great matter they shall bring to you, for every small matter they themselves shall judge. So he's setting up, the only word I can think of is hierarchy. It's a management system. Okay, so like when you are in your job at work, if you work for a corporation, it's easier to see it, but you have your team lead, and then you have your supervisor, and then you have your manager, and then you have your district manager, and so on up the corporate line, all the way up to the president of the company. And it would be ridiculous for one of the entry-level people to go to the president of the company just to find out how to replace the paper in the printer. You see what I'm saying? Where they could go to the team lead and find out where the paper is and how, all that kind of stuff. So this is a really good system, and we use this kind of a system to this very day. It's a great system. So, okay, so we're still in verse 22. So it'll be easier for you, for they will bear the burden with you. And if you do this thing, and God so commands you, then you will be able to endure, and all the people will also go to their place in peace. Of course, because like in the example I said, if the entry-level person doesn't know where the printer paper is, right? And they go all the way to the president of the company, who might not even be around, might not even know where the printer paper is, because it's really irrelevant to the job that they're doing. It's just wasting time and the job doesn't get done, right? But if they go to the team lead, the person who's right there next to them in the same office and very familiar with how things run there, they'll get the paper and they'll be able to do their job, right? Same thing. Same concept. Verse 24, so Moses heeded the voice of his father-in-law and did all that he said. And Moses chose able men out of Israel and made them heads over the people, rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of 50, rulers of 10s. So they judged the people at all time. The hard cases they brought to Moses, but they judged even every small case themselves. And Moses said let his father-in-law depart, and he went his way to his own land. So Jethro went home. And so a couple other little things that I want to just look at closely here. Moses didn't let his ego get in the way. He listened to Jethro, and he put it in place. And he prepared the people underneath of him and delegated these tasks to them that they were supposed to do. And of course, the really hard things he still did himself, but it freed him up so that he could focus on those bigger issues. And he didn't get his head all puffed up and get mad and that kind of thing. And he really did set into motion a system so that everybody could work together for the good of God. Really. So I just think this is a beautiful picture. We even have this in the church. We have different names for them in different churches, but there is kind of a hierarchy up to, depending on the church that you belong to, you may have bishops and cardinals and different things like that. But for the most part, we have our local leadership, and it just kind of goes up. And even within that local leadership, depending on how your church is organized, I'm talking about your local church, right? You might have small groups where there's somebody who's a leader of that. And then there's larger groups within that group, depending on the church and depending on the size of the church. But we can see how these things kind of work together through the whole body. So that's the end of chapter 18. And it was a really good lesson as far as practical living, I thought. So we're going to do chapter 19 next.